Welcome back to the Quantum Guide Show. Today in episode 154, my first-time guests are Don Rogers and Canadian Spinja. Don Rogers and Canadian Spinja are a Canadian power couple who are experiencing the awakening process together. Don had a full knee replacement early in life, and he used alcohol to deal with the suffering. After he and Spinja got together, he checked into treatment for his alcohol use, and his recovery introduced him to the spiritual aspects of life. Just when things seemed to be picking up for the couple, with both working jobs in fields they enjoyed, financial hardship struck when Don's employer passed away suddenly, and shortly after, the landlord decided to sell the rental property within 30 days. Feeling lost and confused, the pair were unsure of the future, and they loaded up their mid-size SUV a few weeks later and headed across Canada to Alberta, where new jobs awaited them. In September of 2023, all of the shifting started to make some sense. Don started having a succession of nightmares and memories of intergalactic warfare. Some of these events seemed to be happening in the future. Thankfully, Spinja had been on a podcast information deep dive into the spiritual and the paranormal, and finally convinced Don to listen to a podcast about the super space program, and it immediately resonated with him. Don contacted Rob Khalil of the Typical Skeptic podcast, where he was given the opportunity to be put into hypnotic regression. And then everything started to make sense, and he truly began his spiritual awakening. To find out more about Don Rogers and Canadian Spinja and their podcasts, as well as my work, all of the links are featured below in the description. Check out, subscribe to our channels, leave us some comments, like our shows, and share this video with your friends. Welcome, Don and Spinja. How are you guys doing today?
Very excited to be here. It's an honor.
Thank you. That was wonderful.
Yeah, I left excuse me, I left a few things out, but I thought some will come out in sharing your information today. It's a real privilege to have you on the show, and I'm so happy to have found you because you're fellow Albertans like myself, and us Albertans got to stick together. But
right.
Yeah, I thought it would be great to have you on the show to inspire other people that are just waking up. Some of us have been at this for a long time, but some of us are new, and it's pretty overwhelming. It's a lot to kind of digest and get through, and then your whole paradigm gets shifted, and oh my goodness, everything changes. And so I thought it would be great for you to share basically your waking up story and how you started to find things in the world are not the way you imagined previously. So please feel free to add anything that I missed in the introduction, and why don't you tell us a little bit about yourselves?
I think you pretty well summed it up perfectly in the introduction, but it does go back a little further. Like my spiritual awakening, like you said, started in September. But if Spinja hadn't have been on hers 2 years prior to me, I wouldn't have been able to handle this by myself. I'd have probably ended up in a loony bin, because the things that I've discovered since, and the journey that, like, I quit a $30 an hour job because I couldn't handle the real world anymore. And if she hadn't have been here to catch me in pretty much every aspect, I don't know where I'd have been. So I think it's fair to have her give a quick summation of how we even got to Rob's show, because that actually travels through you as well.
Okay.
So if you...
Yeah, I think my awakening actually started, like, we're going like way back. I was rubbing my eyes in 2007 when I was introduced to The Secret.
Yes.
And that's like, okay. And then over the years, then he ventured on to Abraham Hicks and
Yes.
Esther. And
that's very similar to my path. I was having these strange experiences, and then I watched The Secret, and it made perfect sense to me. That just blew my mind. And I started paying attention to Abraham Hicks as well. And then, I don't know, did you watch the show called What the Bleep?
yes, that was just after Abraham.
Yes. So sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Go ahead.
No, I'd actually forgotten about that. Dawn hasn't seen it, so
Yeah,
I dropped the ball there.
Yeah.
But yeah, and just a lot of stuff happened. Like I was obviously over the target, and there was just a lot of things, but it brings me up to it was actually July, I think, of 2019. A friend of mine in Australia had told me about this YouTuber, Charlie Freak. And so I watched some of his stuff, and there was a lot that resonated, and I just kept on doing more digging. I'm going to I'll be honest, I did some digging into the 17th letter stuff. But if I didn't do that, I certainly wasn't like holding the banner and jumping up and cheering and whatnot. I was just looking, like, the information, and all the rabbit holes was crazy. And so that got me really on the search for things. And so then I learned about discernment, and and so yeah, anyway, last summer, I was working, I run an industrial sewing machine. I sew gymnastics bodysuits, and I love it. And so we're pretty free as long as we get our stuff done. They don't really care what we do. So I was listening to podcasts, and was doing some digging, and so I found, I'll shorten this up because I can actually go like back even further to how I got here. But it was Chris Matthew. I'd heard him on Sam Tripoli's show Tinfoil Hat. I'm like, okay, this guy really resonates with me. That's pretty cool. So I went and I found his podcast, and so I listened to a lot of episodes of his, and then you were on one of his episodes, and I'm like, wow, she's from Red Deer. This is cool. And so that's how I got introduced to your podcast. And then you had interviewed Rob Khalil from Typical Skeptic, and that was another, oh wow, this guy really resonates with me. And so then I started listening to his podcast too, and that's where I found the episode in regards to the secret space program, and I'm like, whoa, there's a lot here that's lining up with Dawn. And I mean, in the meantime, I had been like jumping up and down, come on, listen with me.
Yeah, it wasn't happening.
He wasn't. He was stubborn, and he'd sit inside in the summertime. It's like beautiful. I'm sitting out in our like under our gazebo listening to podcasts, just right in my glory, and just trying to get him to join me. I think this summer is going to look a little different.
Yeah. And just a footnote that there was a moniker of time that your official title in our house was the Red Deer Lady.
Because he couldn't remember your name. I kept on saying Karen Holton, and like he's like, I don't know who that is. I'm like, the lady from Red Deer.
Oh, okay. And then I get it, because I was so new to
it's all good.
I was so new to all of this, and then it all just, as soon as I watched the episode with Arkeem Ra on the Typical Skeptic after the succession of nightmares, and things just seemed so similar. Like, I actually finished that episode in tears. I'm not even afraid to say it, because I was like, oh my God, that's what I'm seeing.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so I contacted Rob after that, but it's just such a wild ride from there, because a lot of Rob's things woke me up so much more to my metaphysical awareness, like psychic abilities, astral travel. Like I I went back on Rob's show after I got deeply involved in the secret space research, trying to figure out what it was after I found out that it was real. And like, she started to worry about me, but I pulled myself out just in time. But what I had done is used astral travel to find a succession of what are called DEWs, is distant early warning system, or distant early warning. They were installed around the same time as all the Defen bunkers in Canada, and all of these things are unaccounted for. They're just assumed to be radar stations, but when you look at them, they're the size of military installations. Some of them even have towns built to support them, right? And I ended that program with showing him a place in Nice, Alaska that is actually a Space Force base.
Yes, I saw that. That was a really interesting show. So you just bopping around in the astral, finding all these places, and then you look them up later on Google Earth, I guess, and there they are.
Yeah, and it actually, the weird one was Mount Douglas in BC. I woke up the same day and I was like, Google, and she's like, what's the matter? And I'm like, I have a word stuck in my head. It's she's like, Douglas. And I'm like, why does that sound familiar? I looked it up and there was a hidden World War II military base there. And it's like, okay, I'm onto something. I did this on purpose. So I went back into meditation and went into the astral during meditation, stored up my numbers, found the stuff in Alaska, found the stuff in the Arctic, and just laid it out to Rob and left him with his chin open, like
yeah,
the guy that wants proof. Well, here's a whole list of proof. We can go on Google Earth and I can show you all of it. And that's basically when I realized that I had certain psychic abilities and could, I don't want to call it farsight because that's an institute, and like remote view. Yes, thank you. We are literally interchangeable. It's actually
that's
pretty
awesome.
funny.
That's awesome. So I was going to ask you, do you think that astral projection, remote viewing, transdimensional travel, that they're all kind of terms describing the same basic phenomena?
Yes, because we had an incident where we completely consciously remote viewed our friend Maya, the one that's going to be interviewing you on the radio next week. But she was having a panic moment in a Walmart parking lot, and both of us kind of like went into a theta state really quick. And I was like, are you driving a black midsize SUV with silver trim near a light standard? And she's like, how the hell did you know that? I'm like, because I can see you. You're going to be all right. The problem's over there. And she's like, oh yeah, I can see her. She's two things over or something from the shopping carts. And I was like, okay, so we're both able to just pop into the astral when we need to remote view something necessary. And
Fantastic.
Again, Maya was just left with her mouth open. She's like, how did you guys just do that? I'm like, I don't know.
Not a clue.
Yeah. So what I found in my own life, and I've heard from other people, is it seems like it starts with one event. And then once we come to accept it and own it, then other things start to unravel. Like, for instance, we start to become aware that we have psychic abilities. We start to see things that we didn't see before. So many things just start opening up to us. Is that how it's gone for both of you?
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff I don't even talk about on my own show, but yeah, we can go for it. I have channeled her deceased estranged father and said things that only he knew that I didn't even know in the 5 years we've been together. Her mother who is also deceased, will crack jokes, and like since my awakening, I found out that I'm able to channel like an astral, and it literally just started because the day that I quit my job, my boss had berated me over the speakerphone app in our work trucks, and I was driving an 800-gallon sewage truck, and he had distracted me so much I almost killed myself and another driver.
Oh dear.
And that was my breaking point, because I knew I was supposed to be doing something else. And this certainly, sucking poop for a living, was not worth dying for. Right. And I phoned her after I had walked out of his, like, I went respectfully. I cleaned his truck. I emptied it. I parked it in the garage, and I phoned him and I said, I can't work for you anymore. And he thought I was joking, and I just had hung up the phone, and I phoned her next. I'm like, I just quit my job and I don't know what to do. And she's like, well, just go home. We'll be fine.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the interchangeable partnership, because the things that we've had thrown at us over the last 5 years would break most couples,
Mm-hmm.
but it just seems to be making us stronger and stronger. And yeah, that was basically where this segment of our life, where I started DJing and having my own podcast and being a regular guest on podcasts, really started. And again, I'm going to reference the fact I was so lucky to have somebody who got what was going on to me mentally
Mm-hmm.
in order to catch me. But now it's funny because I have the time to think about stuff that she doesn't. And I'll explain the concept of time and calendars being wrong to her. And she'll just be like, oh, right. So we're literally interchangeable in the sense, like, she caught me and now I'm teaching her about the workings of the universe.
Mm-hmm. That's fantastic. I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. So, yeah, so you've got you started a podcast. Tell us what that's all about.
We actually both have one. Hers is kind of a weekly thing, so is mine right now. So far, up until this point, I've been reviewing the Typical Skeptic podcast, because Rob Khalil puts so many episodes out. It's easy to miss some primo stuff. Like I've talked to people in his own community about just Fearless Frankie.
Mm-hmm.
And somebody's like, who's that? And I'm like, this is a regular in the community. I'm like, oh, how did you miss that? Here's a link. So I'm like, I just decided, I'm like, I have to make a review show of the killer episodes that this guy does. So if his community misses it, they know to go back and look. And it also takes you down all of the questions that you could quite possibly ask, because again, he has some mind-blowing guests on there that make you ask questions. And it's like, these are questions we only get to ask ourselves, but what if somebody put it in a podcast, and then you can put it in my comments or whatever?
Yeah, Rob's a good friend of mine, and I really appreciate him and all the effort he puts in. Sometimes he does 3 shows a day. So for people who out there, the listeners and the viewers, who want more input, because in the beginning and all through our process, it's like, input, give me input, right?
Yeah.
That is a great channel to tap into. And I'll put the link below as well. And Rob Khalil, he's just got a fantastic show and so much information. I actually didn't really know much about the Secret Space program till I started watching his podcasts as well. So yeah, he's amazing. So that's awesome. So he inspired you to start a podcast where you're reviewing episodes of his show, but you do other things too. You do tips and readings for the people with ascension sickness, which is
Yes.
Tell us what ascension sickness is, and what you do about that.
Ascension sickness and the symptoms are essentially just what we're going through, because we're phasing from 3 to 5, right? Because 4 is the astral. So we're going to go from 3 through 4 to 5 into our light bodies. And it's a lot of physiological changes. Like, I know one of the torturous things for me that has happened in the last 6 months is my stomach, my body has an aversion to red meat.
Mm-hmm.
And I born and raised country boy, steak eating, hamburger making redneck. And it feels weird to go to the turkey section to get hamburger meat now, because it's like, oh, I can't eat that. This makes me sad.
Mm-hmm.
And then I found out it's not just me. A lot of people that are metaphysically in tune feel these same ways. Like, you'll just be tired for absolutely no reason. And then you find out there was like a C-class solar flare that wiped out everybody that's energetically sensitive. And it's like, wait a minute, this makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
And it really seems to be that within the aware community, quite often, like, I can say, like, I was sick, she was sick, Angel Laurie was sick, which is another member of Rob's community, and then Rob was sick, and I was sick again in the meantime. Well, then it started this week. everybody was having a bad week, and it's the same group of people all going through the same things. And it's like, okay, these aren't just coincidences, because I don't believe in that.
Mhm.
Right.
It's
It's
because
literally,
we're all energetically sensitive.
yes, it's a type of being that we are, that are being affected environmentally.
Mhm.
Right. Because everything comes from the sun. And when the sun blasts us and you're energetically sensitive, you're going to feel it.
Oh
Right.
yeah.
Yeah.
I even get vertigo sometimes when the solar winds are super high speed,
Yeah.
and then I get really dizzy and sometimes headaches, and so I totally hear you. So on your podcast, you give tips and suggestions to people, and then Angel Wings is often on, and she does what does she do? She does card reading, but from the angelic realms as well as the dragons. Is that right?
Yes, but her and I have kind of parted company in that aspect. The readings are going to be coming back. It's actually probably going to be Spinja doing them.
Oh,
Uh,
wonderful.
Things don't always go the way they are intended at the start of an idea.
Well,
And
yeah, people come and people go and things change. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. So, well, that's all good. It's still a great show. I congratulate you and I encourage everybody to check it out for sure.
yeah,
And did you want to tell us anything else about your podcast? Because after you, I was hoping Spinja could talk a bit about her podcast.
yeah, absolutely. I'm good.
Um, I'm I'm kind of struggling right now with finding the time because there's been some overtime that's kind of jumped into my lap, and right now, my job is what's making all of this happen.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, I haven't been able to shoot anything other than my butter churning and my introduction, but I do have plans. I want to do just like a quick little episode on just pantry basics.
Mhm.
And I know, and the other thing I'm going to acknowledge is that there are healthier ways of eating. This is the way I look at it. Like I was a single mom for 10 years before Dawn came into the picture. So I've learned to use what I have.
Mhm.
And I'm going with, you know, like just staples, like, you know, like the flour and sugar and you know, like cocoa, just like little like baking supplies and stuff like that. And so as I learn, because I'm still learning and growing myself, I will be substituting things because that's also part of my search.
Mhm.
But I also don't want to alienate the people that, you know, like that's what they have access to.
Yeah, yeah. It sounds a bit like homesteading,
Yeah.
back when everybody made everything from scratch. And it also seems to overlap a little bit with prepping, making sure you've got everything you need. So if something happens and the store's shut down for whatever reason, God only knows, you have what you need and you know how to make real food. And I think that's the other really important thing is getting people back to recognizing real food from all the
Yes.
processed prefabricated stuff from the supermarket that may be quick
Yeah.
and easy, but it's not really good for us. And it's
Yes.
really good to have the skills. Would you agree?
Absolutely. And like just as an example, I would like we had a box of pancake mix that like we just used it up, and I was comparing the steps between pancake mix versus making them from scratch. There's not a whole lot of difference. You just need to have some stuff in your cupboard. And
Mm-hmm.
it's stuff that you would probably have in your cupboard anyway. So that's where I want to, you know, like just like the staples and just like really folks, it is that easy.
Mm-hmm.
And we've been led to believe that it's time consuming and it's hard and you have to have 50 million ingredients and all that. Like, no, that's not the case at all.
Yeah, you can keep it simple. And plus sometimes it's You seem to put your energy into the food when you're actually preparing it, you know? You put your love into it and it just seems to taste better.
Yes, yes.
Um, I also make and bottle my own ginger ale. Like I'm not trying to sell it to anybody. Don't ask me to ship you any. But I sick like got tired of sodas where I get stomach aches from all the sugar because I was drinking like 3 cans of pop a day or 3 bottles of pop a day, like whatever, while I was working. And it just got to the point where it's like, this is too much sugar. I feel sick from it all the time. So I started looking into it and I found a recipe I really like. And then they were still using white sugar. So I substituted that for creamed honey. And so, like, the only actual sugar, I use raw sugar to ferment the ginger, which is what gives it the fizz. And then it takes about 3 days to get it to ferment. And then you put it in the fridge for 3 days. And it's better than anything you'll buy in the store.
It's amazing.
Right?
Mhm.
And it's basically a kombucha drink, but it's ginger ale.
Sounds wonderful. So yeah, so you're basically going to be doing like homestead tips and pantry
Yes.
stuff and how to cook
Yeah.
from scratch and show everybody how easy it is. That's fantastic. I'm really, really glad you're doing that.
Well, and it's like when I get viewers, it's also going to be like learn as we learn too.
Mhm.
And there's going to be mistakes made and stuff like that, and that's it, but it's a chance to learn, like don't do what we did.
No.
And eventually, like, this is going to lead us, because we have full intention of, somehow we haven't figured it out and we're not asking questions, but we have intention of acquiring a small farm.
Mhm.
And then we'll go from there and share what's happening and the whole learning process too, because it's exactly what you said. Like, people, just at the beginning of their awakening, there's just so much, like, so many questions. Like, this is one section that they can get into, and then like, there's also the metaphysical part of things, and then there's also, like, and then there's the alien part of things. Like, there is so much. And so and that's where I'm coming from, is like, you're not alone. Like, we're learning too, and like, learn with us.
Yeah.
And
It's like when you're inside the box, it's like a hallway with a bunch of doors. But when you go through the doors, you realize we're all in the same room. We have so much in common. And I don't know, I can't breathe inside the box. I can't breathe in mainstream society. I don't know any other way of putting it. I just can't breathe. And I can breathe when I'm around people who are awakening and exploring. And I don't care how far-fetched some of the stuff is that people are talking about. I think it's all real, and I validate everybody, and boy, it's sure not boring at all. And then, I don't know, I just feel a sense of freedom. Do you folks feel like that too?
I'm still playing hopscotch with the 3D, because I'm still maintaining the job.
Yeah, of course.
I will say, though, that it is the best case scenario, like, as far as a 3D job goes, and like, having to play nice and all that. I couldn't ask for a better position and coworkers, and like, just I love sewing. I love all things fiber arts. So the part where I'm getting paid to sew makes it tolerable.
Yeah,
But
and speaking of sewing, tell us a bit about how is it wool that you spin? You spin your own fibers for crocheting and making stuff?
Yes, yeah. Now, a lot of my work currently is the manufactured fibers, because there's not enough time in the day.
Yeah, of
but
course.
yeah, and I actually, there was a course through the Ontario Hand Weavers and Spinners. It's six levels. Now, I got to level 5, and so we started out with wool, and like sheep's wool, and I didn't even know, like, there was, like, I think there's like over 65 breeds of of sheep in Ontario alone. It's like, wow. And then we progressed to fibers like alpaca. And then we also did natural fibers as well. Like we did hemp and flax, which gets spun into linen.
Mhm.
And my favorite part, like I love doing demonstrations, but there's always one smart aleck that comes up. Oh, I have a dog at home. You could spin his hair. Now I can tell him, yes, sir, I can, because that was one of the units that we did.
Yeah, I think about that every time I brush one of my cats. I go, oh my goodness, this stuff is good as gold. But I took a very simple course in how to weave fibers the way the Aboriginal people did, and they used dog hair, everything went into it, and it's surprisingly warm. Now, this may not be practical in the day to day, but when the shit hits the fan, which I think it's going to, and we don't have all the comforts that we're used to, skills like this are super important, not just for maintaining what we need. And in Alberta, we need to stay warm, especially in winter, but we can trade and network with other people. So I think that's also really, really important.
That's one of my big motivations for doing it. Is I love trading. I love bartering. Like that was the thing. Like when I was on the show circuit, like the craft show circuit, the vendors would trade amongst each other all the time, and that's how I did my Christmas shopping.
Mm-hmm.
And as far as skills go, before I was driving the poop truck, I was in restaurants, so I know how to cook. And prior to that, I was 20 years in construction. I'm one of those guys that can literally say, I can build your house. I don't mean I can put the boards up. I mean, I can do everything in it.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And we are going to be the type of people that will be the ones helping the ones that are like, oh, crap, I don't know how to build a house. I don't know how to make mittens. Okay, let us show you. Right? Like, we've acquired the quote unquote real world skills for a reason, because it's going to matter in the new version of the world.
Yep. I agree 100%. I agree. And I think that the new world is actually closer than what we think it is, and I think that might be why there's so many shenanigans going on with the political leaders and stuff. They probably know. And, it's funny, they're all building underground bunkers for themselves. And I think, wait till they're stuck with each other in these closed, confined spaces. And they got to live with each other. Oh my God, sucks to be them, So not that I want to
with the popcorn.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So I want to give you a sec to finish up on what you're up to, but then I was hoping we could switch over a little bit and talk about the secret space program. That's not something I know a lot about because I haven't had direct experience with it. And to be honest with you, I have watched some shows, but some of the people who claim, I guess they are a part of it, they scare the hell out of me with their stories. But I want to give you guys a moment just to finish off, what we were talking about with the skills and networking.
Yeah.
And hi guys, break time for a short message. YouTube will not monetize me, so if you enjoy my content and want to support my efforts, help me to cover my expenses by visiting my shop to buy yourself a beautiful orgone generator. Zendome's Orgonite are my unique brand, and they are ethically sourced, handmade, and double charged for maximum effect. They are only available through my website, www.KarenHoltonHealthCoach.com. Many people are finding comfort with Zendome's orgone generators, commonly called Orgonite. They are a simple compound which balance ambient energy by converting negative energy and EMF into positive healing energy with many easily confirmed health benefits. They are a simple compound with alchemic and energetic properties. These devices function as self-driven, continuously operating, highly efficient, negative to positive energy transmutation factories. They help diminish the harmful effects of electromagnetic frequency radiation by attracting and converting negative energies, retuning them into new and more healthful sound and light wave patterns. And they help to purify the atmosphere and accelerate plant growth. They also help stimulate positive mood and are a natural remedy for poor sleep patterns. When orgonite is within range of any corded or wireless electronic device, it will efficiently and continuously transform that energy into orgone as it is being transmitted. This essentially creates orgone energy transmitters out of any and all emitters of harmful negative energy. You can use these devices for focusing the mind, healing, meditation, and for spiritual growth. Zendome's orgonite are my unique brand of orgone generators, and they are only available through my website. Don't be fooled by imitations. Check out my website to see my latest selection at www.KarenHoltonHealthCoach.com. That's KarenHolton healthcoach.com. Check them out today. Now, let's get back to the show.
What I wanted to touch on before we do switch over is we're going to be taking your course on Ascension Awakening. And both of us are really looking forward to that because like I said, I spoon feed her what I figure out in the universe, and having somebody as experienced as you putting out an actual free to use program is absolutely phenomenal, and just it's a must for people that are waking up, because you come into this so confused. You're like, wait a minute, this isn't yesterday. What the hell just happened to my world?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
If you don't have somebody to catch you like the partner I did, you need a course like yours. And that's all I want.
I think it's really important. I'm really happy that you're going to be doing this with me. So just to let the viewers and listeners know too, I got a download around 2012, and it just came. It's a terrific amount of information. It's 10 full steps. It works out to about 12 lessons. It's quite a lot of information, and it just was like dumped into my head all at once. And I was just a blithering idiot for a while. It took me 2 years just to sort of sort it out. But by 2013, actually, I started to create the very first version of it. But then in 2017, I realized it needed updating because my understanding of things has changed, plus the needs of everybody has changed a bit. But now I'm redoing it to the 3.0 version, so it's the third iteration. So just so you know, because I haven't actually talked to both of you about it in the last week or so, but I've been working every day updating it and getting it all ready so that we can go through the material together, and then we'll record it and get it out to everybody else. But yeah, it's a free program. It's available through my website. The links are down below, and it covers everything. Like, a lot of people don't realize that what they're eating and their cleaning supplies are full of toxic elements that are poisoning them, and they don't know that, and they're getting sick, and they're going to the doctor, and then they're taking pills which are often toxic on top of that because they don't know. And it covers all kinds of things to do with our energy. Basically, I'll try not to talk about it too much because this is your time, but the first three steps are to open your mind and help you to think differently. The middle 3 steps are all detoxification, and then the fourth 3 steps are for your higher spirituality. So that's just sort of it in a nutshell. But I'm really pleased that you folks are going to do this with me, and I'm hoping to get started. I keep saying a couple of weeks, but I'm hoping to get started, probably not this week, but maybe the week after we could get started. I just want to have enough material ready so that I'm not holding up the show down the road. So yeah, thank you for mentioning that. That's awesome.
No, I'm super stoked because, like I said, I feel like that robot on short circuit, like input.
Feed me input, yeah.
It hasn't stopped since September. I almost drove Spinja and our son crazy after my first hypnosis. Like,
my goodness.
My higher self just, like you said, information dump. And it was just like, blah, 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 blah. Did you know the universe works like this? Because I can prove it by this, this, and this. And she's just like, oh my God, shut up.
Put it
It's a
down.
lot. It's a lot. People need to be patient with us for sure when we're going through it, you know. I'm still going through it, you know, all the time. So yeah, so do you want to talk a little bit about what you and I have in common is we both have these transdimensional experiences, and I believe we bilocate, that we're really having these experiences. They're different than the regular dreams that we have. And you started having all these adventures, some of them in the future, some of them happening now. And do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. The coup de grace, I guess I'll start with the best, was actually on the lunar eclipse.
Okay.
It was the strangest thing. The whole house, and I mean, including our 15-year-old that is kind of on the fence about metaphysical to begin with, woke up to an enormous whoosh, and like the whole place was shaking. It wasn't until about 20 minutes after I woke up that I realized about the first 10 seconds I was awake, I was actually speaking in tongues while holding her hand.
Oh, wow.
Right? So we all had a visit, an OBE. I'm not sure. After exploring it a bit more, it was weird because I started looking up, was there an earthquake? Well, no, but there was an earthquake predicted for a month later. It was a mistake on Google, but the day I looked it up, it said there was going to be an earthquake in a month. But it had actually happened the year before. Anyways, but it was just this crazy situation that, like, we all know we left this house in physical form and were returned in basically a vapor lock, because it sounded like somebody opening a Ziploc container, except it would be the roof of the trailer. And like everybody just came back at once, and all of us kind of sat up and woke up at the same time.
There was also like the air was really, it was refreshing. Like we had an oxygen mask on, and it was chilly, like not cold, but it was cool.
Yeah. Have you ever been up to Lake Louise?
Mm-hmm.
When you're up there on like a -20 day, and that was the first breath. Like it was literally like being back up in the mountains, because that's where I worked when I first moved here. And that was the sensation that I can explain. It was just pure oxygen, right? But as far as the SSP stuff goes, that started with the succession of dreams that were actually nightmares, like the things that I don't have it, the horrifying ones that you're talking about, where there's children involved and bad things done by bad people. I don't have that. What I actually have is, I'm pretty sure I've enlisted my consciousness in a different dimension or in the future or something. I am not saying for 1 second that 5'5" me that lives in Bicycle has ever served military. I'm telling you that there's a part of my consciousness that exists in a reality dimension or time that is involved in the military actively now. And the stuff that I've seen in the future is actually when the fifth dimensional creatures have come out of hiding on the 3D plane and already had their big war. And the remaining people that hadn't ascended, that's actually who we were back helping. And it's about 20-25 years in the future, I would guess. And they're living in basically converted missile silos in underground bunkers. And that was one of the things I showed Rob on the episode where I showed all the bases, was that these things actually exist. Mm-hmm. There's ones that can hold 75 people for up to 5 years. And they're like $2 million or $1 million for your apartment in it. But that's neither here nor there. It's the fact that I saw people living in these things. And the one that I remembered particularly, the whole side of it was blown out, and I looked down and I couldn't figure out what it was at first in the vision, because it looked like an underground city. I'm like, that doesn't make sense. This is a hill. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't until I woke up and started looking for underground bunkers, and then it's like, oh, they've repurposed missile silos into underground bunkers. I'm like, how the hell did I know that? Right? This is nothing I've ever seen before. Mm-hmm. And then it went on into I had knowledge as far back as the Cold War, but I also had knowledge from the future. So when I unlocked, I'm guessing that at some point in my life, I've at some point of my existences, I've always tried to be in the military, is what's gone on. Because even at a young age, as myself, I tried to enlist in the military, but they said my grades weren't right. And I had a psychological analysis when I was younger because my stepdad died at a very young age. And they're like, oh, no, that's against you. You can't join the Canadian military. Okay. So I didn't make it into the military this time, but apparently in like the majority of the other existences of my consciousness, I have been. And it's not the horrific things that I've heard from other people. Like there's certain aspects of it. Like, yeah, I've been brutally killed. I've had my teeth smashed out with the butt of a rifle, but none of the demeaning, gross things and torture is about the easiest way I can explain my involvement in the SSP.
Oh, that's good to know. Have you ever had any experiences like that 20 and back that Corey Good talks about? Sorry, I don't mean to bring up Corey Good, but he is the first reference I ever had for the SSP. So I'm just wondering if you've ever had anything like that happen.
Yeah. When I was 5, I saw what I can only describe as light beings in my front yard out my window. And of course, my parents dismissed it as like, oh, you watched too many space movies. But I remember standing at my window looking out and I could hear them talking to me. And they were like, oh, you're going to have to come with us for a while. And I left. I did my service and they put me back and they're like, you're not quite done yet. And I was 5 when I got my first full download. I remember being able to see its face in my head and it's going, I'm sorry. And I'm like, what? They're like, you're going to need this. And just dumped info into my head. And in grade 4, I was a solid C student, right? I don't hide that from anybody. But in grade 4, I almost won the science fair in my school for a recycling project. It was a countertop can crusher, so you could maximize the space of the room in your recycling bin. I found out later that had already been invented in the 50s, but for a 10-year-old to come up with it and explain the workings of it to his father, who was a sheet metal worker, so he could build it, that's pretty impressive. The next year, I was invited to the Ontario Thinking Symposium, which was held 15 minutes from the Meaford military base. I remember going on the bus there and I remember leaving. That's what I remember about that entire experience. And that was the Ontario Thinking Symposium that I was invited to the next year. And as far as, I wouldn't go as far as saying targeted individual, but it certainly seemed interesting. As soon as I kind of snubbed my nose at the Smart Kid Club in academia, my grade 7 year, I was literally put in a class with every bad kid that had ever been suspended coming up in the de-streaming of the schools. And I was smoking pot within 3 weeks of being in junior high. So there was certainly, as far as the 20 and back, and they knew that they had given me information that could become detrimental. So I was automatically fed my addictions and my neuroses and anything you could do to deter me from being able to figure out my actual intelligence was done. And my actual path. Like I've mentioned it to Spinja. It just seemed weird that drugs were just always available to me. Alcohol was just always available to me. Like it was like they kept me sedated as long as they could. And it was actually in July of last year that I stopped taking my last pharmaceutical medication, which was venlafaxine, which is supposed to increase your serotonin level because they told me I had a serotonin deficiency, except it used to give me crippling headaches if I stopped taking it. Like it really felt like I was having a stroke. So I finally forced myself through it. I thought if I can beat alcohol, I can beat this. And I stopped taking them. And 2 months later, I started my awakening.
Interesting. Very interesting. I also believe that a lot, this is not a medical show and I'm not giving medical advice and I would never tell people to stop their medication. I'm just speaking from my own experience. But for me, I had to get completely off, not just pharmaceuticals, but the over-the-counter stuff too. It absolutely limited my spiritual understanding of things and also my ability. Now, I wanted to ask you another thing related to the 20 and back is the time differential. So I myself have transdimensional experiences. It happens to me over the space of a night. So I wake up in the morning, I go to bed at night, I'm in my bed, and I wake up in the morning and I'm in my bed. But in between, I can be gone for weeks or even months of time. And then when you come back, I'm so exhausted, like just so exhausted. And it takes me sometimes weeks to unpack what happened, where I was, what I was doing. Do you experience something similar, Don?
I actually do. And it oftentimes comes through as what I would explain as bleed through. Like, there's times where I'll be talking to Spinja and she's like, "Are you on the ship like right now?" Because even part of my consciousness stays there because we exist there. Right?
Yeah.
And there's times where I'll look at her and go, "I'm about 80-20 right now." And she knows I'm in this reality, but I'm also putting in work.
One foot in the other as well. Yeah.
Yeah. And absolutely with the time dilation during rest periods. And they actually did it to me once in the truck, and I asked them never to do it again because they missed by 2 minutes. And I will tell you, pardon my language, I was some pissed off for about 2 days and did not know why. I came home, tore a strip off of her for absolutely no reason. I'm not airing her dirty laundry. I was just that irritated that if you look at me sideways, and then it came to me that night in a dream that I had been on the ship and that I actually skipped it because my turn didn't make sense. It should have taken me 2 minutes to get there from the last thing I remember.
Mm-hmm.
Further in that back, I remember seeing something out of the left corner of my eye, and it wasn't, what was that? It was like, not a Gant, and that was it. And then I was at my turn.
Yep.
Right. So they literally took me, but they missed it by 2 minutes, and that'll mess you up because you're off balance.
Yep.
You're not where your energy's supposed to be. And I literally had to meditate it out. Like, it was a horrible situation and I felt terrible.
Yeah,
like,
I've had that happen too. I call it being out of phase. It's like you're not fully here and you're not fully there, and it's kind of an in between, and it's actually pretty uncomfortable and very hard to relate to the 3D world when we're in that state as well. So
like, she can explain it better. Like, I was just non-existent. Like,
he was absolutely disconnected. He was unapproachable. Like, I could not reason with him. And we have a really strong relationship. And, you know, like when we do have disagreements, I'm able, like, I eventually get him to a point where, like, I talk through and, you know, it's like I own my stuff and, you know, and we like dissect it so that it doesn't happen again.
Mm-hmm.
But when this happened, there was just no reasoning with him at all. It was not good.
I felt uncomfortable in my own body. Like, I was just irritated. Like, it felt like I had insulation underwear on. Like, something was just itching me. And then I finally figured it out when I went to sleep. They kind of showed me and apologized. I'm like, guys, you can't do that. You just screwed up my 3D life. Like,
yeah, there's got to be, for sure, there's got to be a balance because we have to live here and we have to, you know, take care of things here. We have to interact with the 3D, and we can't do that if we're not fully present. And, you know, and, but sometimes, things are less than perfect on Earth and in other places. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. Well, Maya loves this story. I went for a nap and had a dream that I was heading to the moon for a mission and got intersected by a gray, and he actually drove his ship into mine and I blew up. And that's when I woke up out of the dream. I woke up and had an apple-sized bruise on my foot between 3 of my toes, and I now have a new feature on my nostril that was never there before. I don't know if they just quickly threw me back together and some of it actually scarred through into the real world, what they call the real world, or what, but she can verify, like, I've never had this mark on my nose.
There was a line, and underneath, it was discolored.
Yeah, it looked like plastic surgery.
Interesting.
And it's like, okay, did they literally just pop me back in and were like trying to put my astral together so quickly that, because like I said in the program, I've died, I can remember at least 40 times. Like, I don't get that adage of you don't actually die in your dreams. No, I've died. I've died many times. and it's never pleasant. But then I'll have other nights like what you're saying where I'll be up working on the moon for a week rewiring the things that are going on there.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Off planet, helping a new civilization. Like I believe there's many parts of my consciousness living many realities.
Mm-hmm.
And I can go in and out of them now fairly easily and do quite often during meditation and sleep.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Yeah, it's a lot to juggle. It's a lot to juggle. But once you wake up to it and kind of get adjusted that we're we're all on kind of missions. Well, not everyone on Earth, but those of us who chose to come back, chose to live at this time, and share our consciousness with other dimensions and other worlds. We're doing really, really important work. And I'm sure that when our day is done here, we'll look back and get a huge level of satisfaction from knowing that we did it and we were brave enough to deal with it and still live as humans.
Yeah, I completely agree with that because, like, I think those of us that are actually having this awakening, to paraphrase Dolores Cannon, the three waves, we're we're star seeds, and that's why we're getting memories back and some other people aren't. There's certain souls, certain beings that have been trapped here because of the nefarious things that have gone on with the installation of the karma system and the souls not being able to leave and just being recycled and recycled. Because yeah, every soul agreed to be here, but there's nefarious beings that have installed the karma system that trap them here. That's why the star seeds chose to come back here and come around the karma system. That's why we're allowed to wake up as well, because it's literally just our presence. Like, her and I will go to the mall just to make people smile.
Mm-hmm.
Because I've taught myself to be able to greet people in at least 6 different languages, just because I don't believe we should always just English.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll do it just randomly in the mall. I'll thank the Middle Eastern man that handed me my hamburger in his own language, and they'll just, how do you know that? I'm like, because I respect your culture and I respect you.
The lady at the bank.
Yeah. The lady at the bank, I thanked her in Hindi, and the other tellers had thought I had done something offensive. What did he say to you? He thanked me in my own language. Right. And it was just this touching moment, and I just smile and walk away, and I know I've helped.
Yeah.
Right.
It just shows that we care. I was going to say another thing that I think is that we're quantum mechanics. When your car's broken and you need the engine repaired, you take it to an automotive mechanic. Well, we're working on the quantum reality. We're working on the timeline. So I call us quantum. I know it's play on words because there's, the science called quantum mechanics. I think we're quantum mechanics, and we're making a difference, and everything we do makes a difference. Going to the mall and being friendly to people makes a difference. You can feel the energy between you. It just kind of rises to a new level. It's a wonderful, wonderful way to be once we realize we have choices. But, for me, I got to sometimes just turn off the screens and just reconnect, with my purpose and with my world, even with my pets. You've got 2 amazing dogs. You have a cat too, don't you?
Yes.
Yeah. Something I wanted to go off of what you were saying there is something I've explained to our young lad is the concept of self-awareness, because a lot of, people in the regular world think self-awareness is, I didn't hurt anybody's feelings today. But I also have explained it to them. This is one of these wonderful things that I get to rabbit hole while I sit here by myself all day, is like self-awareness should actually act more like a vein system, because like, you smiled at that man. He went home and hugged his wife, who went home and made their child cookies. Like it goes all the way into existence. When it doesn't just stop at the smile at the grocery store to the nice man who bagged your groceries. It goes deeper in every aspect. You can decide to kick the ball away that rolled at your feet from those kids that were playing, or you can playfully throw it back and make them smile, and they're going to go tell their mom about the nice lady. Everything you do, every choice has to involve self-awareness, because it affects our entire reality. And that's how we're going to elevate the vibration to allow everybody else to ascend with us.
Mm-hmm.
You just summed up why I enjoy doing demonstrations so much.
Mm-hmm.
I love, like, one of my most favorite things. I love taking my wheel and doing demonstrations. Like, if anybody out there, like, you're like in, like, around Airdrie, I'll even drive to Red Deer, like, to take my wheel. Like, I have very little lines there. I just enjoy it so much because, and the thing is, it's not something that people see every day now. Like,
Mm-hmm.
like somebody sitting at their spinning wheel, and the conversations that it has brought on is just amazing. Um, one of my favorites. I was spinning in Peterborough, Ontario, on Canada Day a few years ago, and there was a man that came up to me and he looked at my wheel and he says, "Is that a Lendrum wheel?" And I'm like, "Yes, it is," because like, unless you're a spinner, like, you don't generally know these things. So he then explained to me that he grew up next door to John Lendrum, the man who designed and built the wheel.
Wow.
And he told me that he had built it for his, like, he designed it for his mom. And and the thing with the wheel is that he still has his hand in the production. The last I heard, there was like a 2-year wait list for it, because he makes sure that he touches every wheel, because if he doesn't, it's not a Lendrum wheel.
Mm-hmm.
And then
Interesting.
the other favorite story. See, I put myself in. I think about 6-year-old me when when a teacher brought her table loom into my classroom. I never forgot that. That's what sparked everything. So that's another reason why I love having my wheel out, is the little ones will come over.
Mm-hmm.
And I was spinning at this event, and there was a little girl. I'd say she'd probably be about 8 or 9 years old, and it was in a tent, and there was a bunch of vendors, so her mom was able to watch her and walk around the tent, and she was just fascinated and just asking me, like, question upon question, and like, of course, I was loving it. And so her mom comes over, and she says, "Oh, I'm so sorry she's bothering you," and she tried to get her to come with her. And I'm like, "If you're just wandering around, I am happy to explain everything. Like, I'm loving these questions, so, like, you can see her, like, do whatever you wish, but I'm happy to answer the questions." And it just makes me wonder, like, is that little girl going to be a spinner down the
Oh,
road?
probably. Maybe she
Yeah.
was a spinner in a past life. Spinning is very interesting. It's in our folklore, it's in our history, and it seems to also be a state of meditation when
Oh,
people are spinning. And yeah, it's a very, very interesting craft. So I'm really happy that you're bringing it back, because
the
you're the first spinner I think I've ever met.
oh yeah. The first time I ever sat down at a wheel, I'm just gonna say it was a really, really bad day, involving my ex, and I was doing a fiber arts program, and I was so excited about learning to spin, and and I'd been pulled out of class, and I came back in, and my instructor saw, like, I was just a wreck. So she took my hand and she sat me down at the wheel, and she gave me the basics. And once I was able to get the wheel going, and the wool and stuff, I was like transformed into another dimension. Like,
Yeah.
and I told people that, and I said, like, it might sound crazy, but now I'm starting to think, no, I went to another dimension, because I was so at peace,
Mm-hmm.
and all the ugly just melted away.
Mm-hmm. Wonderful, wonderful. Now, folks, we're coming close to the end of the show, so I don't want to abruptly change topics, but I'm wondering if there's anything, any messages that you two would like to share, any advice you'd like to give people, anything you want to talk about, what you've got coming up, or Oh, your podcast,
Um,
anything at all. This is your chance. And also, for those that are listening on the audio, tell people where they can find you. It'll be in the links below, but it's nice for them to be able to hear you say it as well.
Okay. I have my show on both YouTube and Rumble under March 4th Productions, and that's the number 4 with TH. And it's the Roundtable Show. That's the review show of The Typical Skeptic, where we also go in depth and to just some interesting conversations like the concepts of time and months. And anyway, also on Friday nights, I co-host with DJ Maya on 1077 Battle Bro, and you can catch that online. We have very similar guests from the paranormal realms. Sometimes we have indie bands.
It's WVEW.
Okay, WVEW. Interchangeable. But yeah, those are the main places you can find me. And like I said on the radio last night, you can add me on Facebook too, as long as you're not a weirdo. Oh, and your show.
Oh, so I am on Instagram under Canadian Spinja. I do have my account locked, so but as long as you're not crazy, then and then I'm planning on carrying on. I'm gonna I'm gonna clear some time this weekend because I'm actually home, and I want to shoot a few videos. And I just want to say, like, to the people that are rubbing their eyes and stretching and figuring it out, it is overwhelming, but you're not alone. And reach out. Don't hesitate to reach out, because I will say, like, I didn't. I was too shy. I like, I was listening to Karen back in the fall, and it's like, oh, I want to email her, but I'm too. And so then Dawn just did it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm really glad you did too.
And there's like there is a lot. I think my best advice is, like, pick a lane that sings to your heart at that time. Like I went into, like, I was doing a lot of research in regards to homesteading. And so now I know when it's go time, I have all my resources there. I haven't really been listening because, I've been focusing more on this community. But it does get overwhelming. But the other thing I'm finding is that you will cross paths with other people that have the missing pieces that you haven't had time to research, and that's where you exchange information.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess just a footnote on the Facebook thing, if anybody does want to know about my meditation techniques or what I do to go where I go, you can message me on Facebook and I'll run you through it, and I'll even give you the links of the stuff that helped me train my brain.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Yeah, it's been a real pleasure to spend time with both of you. I hope we get to do it face to face one day soon. And in the next couple of weeks, I'm looking forward to making some videos with you while we launch the Quantum Health Transformation version 3.0. And yeah, it's just been a real privilege to spend time with you guys. I'm so proud of you. You work so hard to just, learn as much as you can and be good people. You're natural networkers. You include everybody. You're just doing a fantastic job. I'm so proud of you. I'm so glad that I had a chance to meet you and that you came on the show today. Thank you so much. So I guess that's it for today. And sorry, go ahead.
No, I'm so grateful to have crossed paths with you. And I have on my angel orgone pendant.
Right. Oh yeah, it's beautiful. Looks so good on you.
It goes everywhere with me now. Like I don't leave the house without it. And I feel your energy in it. And like, even like if I get feeling down or whatever, it's like, okay, there's somebody that cares. I know there's somebody that cares, and it's beautiful. And thank you.
Oh, you're very, very welcome. Yep, I do care. So I love you both, and I love my audience, and I love the listeners and the viewers. And all I can say is keep up the good work, and we'll see you next week again on the Quantum Guide Show. Bye-bye, everybody. Thank you for joining me for the Quantum Guide Show. Become the change that you wish to see in the world. Subscribe to my YouTube and other channels at Karen Holton TV. Click the like button, leave me a comment, and share this podcast with your friends. Check out my website at www.karenholtonhealthcoach.com to see my free resources and amazing products and services. All the links will be in the description below. As part of the Forbidden Knowledge Network, you will find the Quantum Guide Show with Karen Holton and also the Aliens and Angels podcast on all audio platforms. Until next time, keep up the good work.